I can
Check.
talk loud.
This one's on. It's not on yet.
Okay.
Make sure you-
So welcome. I'm blown away. We kind of were talking earlier, like maybe noon people aren't going to be able to come, but I wanted that option for people that might have commitments in the evening to do something. So we're so excited that you all are here. We want to make sure this isn't a one and done type of event. This is something we hope that we're going to do at probably every other month is what we talked about. And we'll continue to have the 2 times unless feedback, unless you have ideas. We'd love to hear your feedback as well. So I kind of wanted to just quickly go through the format, and then I'll share our purpose and priorities with you. And then we'll move into just some really quick discussion around what our big rocks are right now, or our big blocks, or things that we're working on as a district. Those will come from our directors, and then you will have a lot of time to be able to ask us questions. So the format for asking questions, our goal is to hear as many voices as we possibly can. And so I know time's limited, and we also want to create a safe space for people to ask questions. So we will have up there, it's kind of hard to read. We might dim the lights just a little bit, but we'll have a number that you can text questions to, and our Director of Communication will go over how to do that. We will also have note cards, and I think the note cards are on that back table. So you can, if you don't have a cell phone that you can use, you can grab a note card, and we'll have a basket in the back. And then Eric will kind of compile those into key topics. He'll ask a question based on some key topics that you have, and then we'll also have an opportunity where in between the question Eric asks, we answer. You'll be able to also ask a question if you'd prefer to just ask it in front of the whole group. But we wanted to make sure we were respectful of people who don't necessarily like to talk in public but still have questions they want to ask, as well as people who would just prefer, let me just ask the question directly. Our goal really is to be completely transparent and honest. If there is something that we don't know, that you ask, we will find out, and we'll ask for your email or a phone number, and we'll get back to you, because that's our goal, just to communicate and be open and honest with you all. So again, we're excited. We're proud of some of the work we're doing. We also know we have some growth areas as well. So excited for that. All right, so our purpose and priorities. We went through a pretty comprehensive process about a year ago where we had our school board members and our administrative staff work together. Administrative staff means our directors and our principals work together to come to a conclusion and some commonality with what is our purpose. So you'll see around and on our website these statements. Our purpose of the Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential. And then as we drafted that purpose, we came up with our priorities. And again, they're on the wall or the screen. The first priority really focuses on that piece of educational equity and improvement. You'll hear today some discussion around our assessment system, our curriculum. You'll hear maybe the word MTSS. MTSS is a multi-tiered system of support. And the key for having that system of support is really having that foundational, universal curriculum for all students. So we've identified the gaps where that might be missing. And this year we've taken steps to ensure that we have a common reading program, we have a common behavior program, and then we'll move into a social emotional learning program. So that's that MTSS model, and then doing a lot of work as a district around equity. And Dr. Jones is here to talk about that as well. Our transparent financial planning and processes, we're really working hard. Last year we went through a little bit more, I think, transparent process that involved our staff. But not there yet at all. We have a lot of work to do, just even in sharing reports and things with the community. So we have been training the school business official, and I have been training on a new program that kind of takes your financial information and puts it into some really easy to read and display products. So we're almost ready to roll that out. Still just a little bit more learning to do. The third priority is around recruitment, retention, and development of high quality staff. We want to make sure that the staff we get feels supported and also are well trained. So we as a district have been working really hard on this. We will hope to be, by next year, looking at an instructional framework. Our teachers haven't had an instructional framework to be able to refer to. This year we're working on training the administrators in that instructional framework, and then next year we'll be rolling that instructional framework out. And that really looks at what are good teaching practices, and what do we need to help our teachers that gain in order to be able to display those good teaching practices. And again, a lot of work around equity, and also recruiting. We've changed our model this will be our first year. So we're able to go to job fairs and actually hire teachers. In the past, we've gone to job fairs and we've had this really cumbersome process where we might go to a job fair in January, but we don't hire until May, June, July. So it really didn't make a lot of sense. So those teachers that were attending those job fairs, they were getting hired by Ankeny, Des Moines, all of the schools around us, because we were so slow. So we've changed that process. We're now able to go to those job fairs, hire on the spot, or can bring them in right away for interviews. And then the fourth area, clear and consistent communication to support positive, proactive community relationships. This is an area that we have so much work to do, and I'm excited, like I said, to see all of you here today, because it shows you want to be communicated with, and you have questions, and you want to be able to have a voice. So we're working on that, and again, I recognize we're not doing a great job 100% of the time, and so we're going to work hard to be better in this area. Any suggestions that you have, we are open to hear. So I'm sure there are great suggestions that'll come out today as well. And then the last area is a safe and a safe and responsive system that promotes the mental health and well-being of every student or staff member. And this is something we talk a lot about, mental health and the mental health of both our students and our staff. But we know we're in a time when we're experiencing challenging mental health issues as a society, as a state, and as a nation. And so we have taken some actions already this year by adding additional support at the building level. And again, we're working through a budget process to make sure we can get as much resources as possible for our students at the building level. And then putting some programs in place that can help support our staff as well. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to introduce who's up here real quick. And just, I feel like we have a really great team. A couple of these people are new this year, and then at least one person you'll know, but he's new to his position, and it's just been phenomenal. So first we have, what's your name again? You know, you get in front of him and you're like, I can't remember your name. I know. We have Jeff Hawkins. Jeff comes to us. He comes to us from Ankeny, so we're glad he chose to drive down the road a little further for not better school, but a different school. He's in charge of secondary education, so all of the programs and principals in secondary education fall under Jeff. Darcy Cousins. Darcy is our special education director. Darcy's been with us 10. 10 years. And so faced different challenges, I think, as the years have gone on. What we see today is not what we saw even 5 years ago in special education. So she has a lot of insight and wisdom for us around that. Dr. Jones is in his first year as our equity director. And he has been really doing a lot of public speaking, and I'm proud of what we're doing as a district because we are doing some pretty cutting edge things. I think that we have been excited to get Dr. Jones out there to talk about. Again, this is an area we still have a long way to go. Okay, so I don't want it to sound like, boy, we're doing all these great, we are, but we have a long way to go. And then, sorry, what's your name? He's first year too. So Chad Dumas. Chad is in charge of our elementary education program. He comes to us from Nebraska. So he likes to tell Nebraska jokes that are like really goofy and yeah, but we have built, I think, a great team of leaders in this district. So I feel fortunate that we have these strong people working together and feel like we have the right players on the bus now and we're ready to really zoom forward. So I will let Eric, Eric Schmidt is our Director of Communication and Media. So Eric will just give you a quick overview on how to text or do your questions, and then we'll start in with like just 3 to 5 minute presentations by these people, and then it's open time for you to ask questions.
Yeah, thank you. So I have some directions on if you would like to text questions to me. I know a couple of you have already because I've gotten some already, so we will take a look at those after we talk about a few of our big blocks that we're moving this year, but I'll just explain real quickly. If you text to the number 22333, and in the content part, if you type in Ames CSD 971 and hit send, very quickly you will get a message back, and once you get that message back, then you can just type your question and I will get it. And so like I said, I've already gotten a couple of them already, so I know it is working. But again, to the number 22333, and in the subject area, if you type in Ames CSD 971, hit send, you will get a message back, and once you get that message back, then you are free to send your question, and we will take a look at those and answer them in our Q&A portion.
Okay, welcome. I'm Darcy Cousins, Director of Special Education. And like Superintendent Reisner said, we have a few big rocks this year. And one of those rocks is PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. And she also mentioned that multi-tiered system of support. And what PBIS is, in that system there's tiers, and tier 1 is the core. That's the core support that we hope all students receive. And so there's tier 1 reading, tier 1 math, and there's tier 1 behavioral support. And so we decided our tier 1 for our district would be PBIS. We had a lot of things going on last fall, and we knew we needed to get some things in place, and working with Superintendent Reisner and some other professionals around the country, Dr. Clay Cook out of Minnesota, we decided that PBIS would be best for us. We're very fortunate in Iowa to have our AEA system, our Area Education Agency, and so Heartland AEA has trainers that have been trained by PBIS to be trainers and facilitate training in the district. And so we started our training with them last January. Many schools throughout the district or the state have PBIS. A lot of times middle schools and high schools may not jump on board, and we felt so fortunate that our middle school and high school wanted to jump on board. And so we brought all 8 buildings into this room. We were very crowded, and each building had a team ranging from anywhere from probably 6 staff members all the way up to the middle school and high school. They had closer to that 12, 15 because there are bigger buildings. And they came, and then as a district, we all decided on the same 3 expectations that we were going to teach throughout the district. And those expectations are be responsible, be respectful. No. We had a lot of debate around that one. We did not go with that one. We had be responsible, be thoughtful, and be safe. And so in all of our buildings, those are the 3 expectations that you will see posted in your buildings in different places on posters. The teachers, that team of teachers then, they got together about 5 times. And they put together an action plan, and they rolled out the action plan to their buildings this fall. So during pre-service time, they rolled out their action plans, how they were going to teach those 3 expectations for the classroom area, for the gym, for the cafeteria, and then they wrote lesson plans for teaching, and then they put together an acknowledgement system where we are teaching the behaviors we want, we are acknowledging the behaviors we want. That's the positive part of positive behavioral interventions. But we are also then coming in and responding when we have behaviors that we hope we don't see, and how to teach them and reteach. So that, in my 3 minutes, is our kind of our kicking off of PBIS. Both Chad and Jeff now, as the executive directors overseeing secondary and elementary ed, work with their principals together and separately as they analyze their action plan and see, where we have to go back and reteach staff sometimes on what we are doing as well. So they're working more closely at the building level as we continue to roll this out. I think we're really doing well. Of course, it's a harder shift for older kids as we're teaching these, and the principals are working through all of those bumps along the road.
All right, good morning, or afternoon, I guess. As Dr. Reisner, Mrs. Reisner mentioned, I am from Nebraska, and Anthony mentioned that, they're not goofy jokes that I tell, it's that Nebraska is goofy. And so there's a little fine distinction there. So thank you. It really is a wonderful opportunity to be here and serving the Ames Community School District. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the reading units of study. Last year, during the 2018-19 school year, the district engaged in a process of looking at a variety of different instructional materials to teach reading, and then selecting one of those to use as core materials throughout the whole district. So no matter what classroom a kiddo is in, they're going to receive instruction in these same materials. And so that was the reading units of study, which is a research-based program that grew out of Columbia University, the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, and Columbia University is in New York City. So then last summer, after we adopted those materials, we brought in trainers to train the teachers in these materials. We engaged in further process with a committee who's leading that work, ongoing training then this summer and then during this year. And so we now have a committee of folks who are leading a 5-year plan to facilitate the implementation of these materials. One of the things we know about teaching any content area, but reading in particular, is that it's not just a matter of putting materials in front of someone. There's a lot that goes into actually using those materials well. A lot of beliefs, a lot of mindsets, a lot of skills that have to be developed, and that takes time to develop. And so we're really excited with those shifts that we're starting to see in instructional practice in the classroom. Just last week, actually, Mary Morton, one of the strategists, and myself, and then 5 elementary learning leads at the K-5 buildings, all went to Columbia University for trainings so that we could become more immersed and be better leaders in the process back here. And so we are putting on our learning hats and learning more about the process and the systems involved in making that happen. And one of the big things that, one of my big takeaways is that, I just use an analogy. If I'm wanting to learn basketball, the way I get better at basketball is practicing basketball with high quality feedback, right? any skill that we want to develop takes a lot of practice and a lot of feedback and focus feedback. And that's what these materials really facilitate, is a lot of practice with a lot of direct, explicit feedback. And so we're really excited in that process moving forward. So that's a little bit of a touch base on the reading units of study.
Good afternoon. Again, as Superintendent Reisner said, my name is Jeff Hawkins. I want to thank you very much for being here. As Superintendent Reisner said, I too wasn't sure what to expect as far as a community turnout, and I'm just so pleased with all of you being here and wanting to engage and partner with us in this process, and get excited about that commitment for around clear communication. I have 3 minutes, 3 to 5, to talk with you about assessment, which is both a challenge for me personally, because I like to talk, as well as assessment is a broad topic, but I'm going to work towards that goal. So a graphic that I wanted to share with you around assessment is just the concept of balanced assessment. So Dr. Dumas was just talking with us about instructional materials being really important for the ability to provide focused feedback, right? So the reason I like this graphic, it's not necessarily perfect, but I like it because it does show that formative assessment and that classroom assessment, stuff that happens within the moment and within the classroom, really gives us the greatest leverage to influence student learning. Now, the assessment plan for the district that I'm going to talk with you a little bit further about today really houses itself in more of that blue area, the district and state level assessments. Those are what systemically we organize and are responsible to give per the state and per our board approved plan. But I wanted to talk before I got into that component of it about the idea that maybe, in my opinion, and in many educational experts' opinion, the most valuable assessment that we're giving our students is the one that's happening through questioning and quick feedback strategies in order to ensure students are understanding. However, I will talk with you a little bit about that next slide, and that is the overall assessment plan. Again, that blue, the district and state level assessments that we're giving within the district. So as you can see, Eric, if you, would you mind, thank you so much. Would you refresh? There's a graphic associated with that. No, there's a, can you refresh the, if possible? Yep, that's what I'm looking for. Perfect. Thank you so much. So, this graphic is intended to just give you a picture of which assessments we're going to be giving to our students at which grade levels, both from a district and state perspective. So for example, at the PK1 area, right, we'll be giving our early reading and early math assessments to our students in order to benchmark and kind of monitor their progress and their growth in those two skill areas. At the 2-5 area, again, FastBridge is the suite of assessments that we use, and it's actually the suggested model from the state in order to know where our students are at, as well as to track their progress. You can see 6-12 at the secondary area. We're going to be using the MAP assessment. I don't know whether you would have watched or listened to any of the conversation at the board table earlier when we adopted our assessment plan for the district, but that's a test out of a testing agency. I'll get into those details if you have follow-up questions, but it's going to allow us to track both achievement and growth of students on those assessments. 6-12, we're giving it to all students in one portion of the year, and then we're following up with students who show that they need some additional support throughout the year. 3-11, we'll be giving the state-required Iowa State Assessment of Student Progress, that ISASP test. I'm excited to tell you that we've heard that we're going to be getting those results soon so we can get them back to you. One of the things I think about priority 4 around clear and consistent communication, I'm hoping we have some elementary parents who are sitting in the crowd right now who got a letter at their house recently that showed them the results, both from the MAP test they took last year as well as the FAST tests. And I recognize that those MAP results are really late to get to you. I apologize for that, and I'm going to commit to you that when we give assessments, you're going to get results results on those assessments to your kids. We're in the process of printing those letters right now for our secondary folks, that we had that window open a little bit longer, so those middle school and high school letters are going to be coming out within the next week. But yeah, we are not going to give assessments and then you're not going to get results for 4 or 5 months. We're not going to do that anymore. I'll touch base with you about that. Yep, I'll touch base with you about that. So, okay. Well, yep, I told her, again, I told you it was a struggle for me to only go 3 to 5 minutes, right? But what I would say is I want you to hear the commitment of the district to, in a timely way, share the results of your students' learning with you. We want you to be our partner. And the best way to partner with you is to share information in a timely way so that you have the information you need to be our partner. I'm sorry that that hasn't necessarily happened in a few assessments in the past, and you have my commitment that that will happen ongoing. We've got those processes going, and if we need to problem solve some certain situations, we will certainly do that. But we're going to give you the information you need to be a good partner with us. And again, the ELPA assessment is assessment we would use for our English language learners in part of that process. So I just wanted to highlight 2 concepts. Really good assessment is balanced. There's a skew of that balance towards what happens in a classroom on a moment-to-moment basis, has the highest leverage to impact learning. We do want to systemically track learning, right, on a system-wide basis or a statewide basis, and these are the assessment tools that we're using for that latter part. I'd be happy to answer more questions later in the process as well. Again, thanks for being here today.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, it has already been stated, but thank you all very much for being here. We really appreciate it. I want to say this, a couple of things came to mind as I was sitting here. There's an old African proverb that states, it takes a village to raise a child. You've heard of that, right? I don't know if I've heard someone say, it's a different version of that. I don't know if someone said it, but it came to mind one day, is that it also takes a community to raise a school. And I really want to thank you for that, because my position is here because we had community members to advocate that equity would no longer be in the back burner, but that it would be in the front. And so I really appreciate all of your advocacy that you've done in this community. Just your presence here today continues to show us that you mean what you say, that you will hold us accountable. And so I really appreciate you being here. My position, so I started this position in July, and so there are a lot of new things happening, and there's a lot of awareness. And so one of the things that we're doing right now, and of course many of you have heard us use these 2 names in terms of equity, but we have been working with 2 professors, Dr. Katie Swalwell and Dr. Daniel Spikes. And they've been taking us through about 3 years now with the training around critical consciousness. And basically critical consciousness means that it causes us to develop the mindset or the thinking around our own awareness around equity. Awareness, to be able to be aware of disparities in our district, but also to be able to not only be aware, but to recognize areas that we have been complicit or have contributed to disparities in our district. But once we become aware and once we recognize those areas in our own practices, but how do we respond to it? What action will we do to change it? And the reason that I love the fact that we have started with the way we think about the way we do things and becoming more aware, because we all have a different definition when it comes to equity. And I've heard equity being tossed around a lot, and it caused me to think about those of you who have kids and you've been around a lot of kids. You know, when someone falls down, a child may fall down, and they say, I got a boo-boo, right? And then if you're around other kids their age, then the other child comes up and they want to show you their boo-boo too. And so there's like a whole bunch of kids around you showing you, I got a boo-boo too, I got a boo-boo too. And I've seen equity used in that sense, that everyone has a boo-boo, and which one will you address first, right? There are some fresh cuts, and there are some old cuts and needs and scrapes like that, but we have to be able to determine which one to address first. But if we stop and pause and become aware of our own thinking, is that what I'm asking in terms of equity, is it benefiting only me and mine? Or what I'm asking, would it be able to change and benefit a system, all? And so what it's causing us to do as teachers and administrators and EAs is to be able to cause us to pause and think and reflect on our own practices. Notice I did not say create a program. We're not trying to create a program to fix equity. Remember, this thing has been in existence way before any of us in this room were thought about, okay? So what we're trying to do, we're trying to change the mental system first before we change the system. Past practices have been, you create a position, you put that person in that position, and that person runs around trying to fix everything. What we're focusing on is a sustainable system. We're trying to build capacity because I can't be in more than one place at one time, right? I can't be in more places at one time. So I am encouraged so far to see other directors and administrators and teachers speak up on behalf of equity. And that's what we've seen so far since we've been doing this work around critical consciousness. And I look forward to the work that we're going to do. I'll say this before we transition into the next stage. Here's what I want you to think about, a final analogy, if I can put this in your mind. So we voted that we will have a new high school. And it's like, yay, new high school. We finally voted to have a new high school. And so once we made a decision to build a new high school, the hope is that so the next day the high school will be there, and so we can all go in the new high school, we tear the old building down. But guess what? There is a big, ugly hole right next to the high school, and it is messy, and it is an inconvenience to everyone. But there's a big picture in the front that gives us a vision of what the high school would look like one day. And so what I want to encourage you to let you know that an equitable system is coming. Right now, it's a big messy hole. We're digging down into things, and we're finding messy stuff, and we're trying to figure out, like, making sure that the foundation is set before the building is in place. And so I want to be able to paint a picture of the work that we're doing in equity in our system. It's coming. It's messy right now, but it will be beautiful when we get there. Thank you all for being here again.
Is this on? Yes. So we have a lot of questions coming in, which is a great sign. For one, our technology is working, but two, the level of questions are absolutely amazing. So I'm back here scribbling some notes, and I'm going to start with Dr. Jones on one question. Yes.
Is it possible if anybody here, I know I do, has a question in the audience?
Yes.
Can we take turns?
You have an opportunity. You can certainly ask questions. I'm going to.
I said, we'll have it's okay, we'll have you can text or write a question, and Eric will ask for that, we'll answer, and then there'll be a time if you would rather just talk. Mm-hmm. We'll hand the mic, and then we'll go back, and he'll do one, you'll do one, he'll do one.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a number of really great questions, so I'll start with this one, but if somebody does here have a question, just get my attention and I'll bring the mic to you as well. So I've grouped them into a number of categories, and Dr. Jones, I think you started with this, but one of our most recent questions was about how we can improve disparities in achievement across elementary schools.
So could you repeat that question one more time, Eric?
Yeah, plans to improve disparities in achievement across elementary schools.
Okay.
And I started with you because you were the last to talk. And
Okay. Sure, Eric, yeah. some of the plans that we're doing right now, specifically not just focusing on elementary, but also middle school and high school. Remember I said there's a system approach. And so right now we're really doing a deep dive into looking at our policies and our practices and our procedures. And again, I don't want you to think about just elementary, but I want you, in terms of that question, to think about how we're preparing the system. And so one of the things, and again, we adopted this from another resource that we had access to, but we developed these questions, or we adopted these questions to help us to think in terms of when we make decisions or when we look at a policy, how can we adjust it and center equity in how we function as a school system. And I want to read them to you. I made sure that I brought them with me. But the 4 questions are, who is not benefiting from this decision or policy? Number 2, so once we've kind of had some discussions around that question, who is not benefiting from this decision or policy, whether it's curriculum, whether it's how do we respond to behaviors, or how do we look at data, we are asking who is it not benefiting from this, whatever we're doing. The second question is, what current structures, policies, or practices are impacting one or more marginalized groups? And what we mean by marginalized groups, these are groups, identified groups who have been placed on the side. They have not been considered in past decisions that we made in the district. So now we're causing ourselves to pause and ask this question: what current structures, policies, or practices are impacting one or more marginalized groups? The third question is, how will we redistribute, and this is a dangerous one, but it's so fun, it's so much fun. How will we redistribute power, resources, which include money, access, and or voice to bring equity to this issue? And then the final question is, how will we monitor this issue to determine if equitable outcomes are produced? And so the plans going forward is, now we're going back and we're looking at our practices in elementary. How do we identify students in specific programs, such as, I know we have some community stakeholders and those who are interested in, especially ELP, our Talented and Gifted program. How are we identifying students in our programs? And then the way that we're identifying them, when we look at our demographics, we ask the question, now, who is this benefiting? Who is this not benefiting the most, right? And so this is going to help us to be able to center equity and to do it in an equitable way. And so I wanted to be able to respond to that question in that way. We do have a system in place to address that.
And we're trying to pop up on the screen this cycle that we're beginning to use. So I'm glad you brought those questions up. It's a new process for us. And so we take an issue that comes up and we run it through this cycle as leaders. And so as we become better and better at this, our hope is that this will work its way into everything we do, right clear down to the classroom level. And so far it's brought great discussions and some courageous shifts in our practice. So I don't know if you can see that very well, but it gives you the idea of that.
Actually, this is just a suggestion for us. I see lots of phones out. Would we be able to put the slides of this on our website for accessibility? It's fine to take the photos, but I just want you to be able to have access that you want. So if we could do that at the end of the evening, that'd be great.
Can I also jump in on that last question? Because one of the components that I heard in that was academic achievement. The number one indicator of student performance is the quality of the classroom teacher and the strategies that he or she uses. Number one. Research is far and away. That's it. So as a system, what do we have to do? We have to work on improving the practice of the teachers in the classroom to reduce variance, to increase quality and reduce variance. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what I'd say, that's our emphasis. Increase quality, reduce variance.
I want to provide one more opportunity on this theme, and and this is really more for the directors up here. We have a lot of really great questions on other topics as well, but I wanted to provide an opportunity for this question as well. What does professional development look like for educators in regards to diversity and inclusion? And I think there's great answers to this.
So I'm more than happy to share some of the examples of quality professional development that I've already seen happen in our buildings in order to raise that cognizance that Dr. Jones was talking about. So I have seen staff that are engaged in a book study around a book that's titled, Is Everyone Really Equal? Doing some reading and some discussion, really kind of trying to open their minds to the idea of how do we approach our profession with a lens of equity. I have watched other staff engage in kind of analyzing and digging through an equity audit to say, here's some specific data about our school and equitable outcomes for kids, and what are the implications of that equity audit on our goals and action steps as we move forward as a staff. I've watched staff get the opportunity to listen to a student panel, be able to talk with about their experience in the school and what suggestions they might have for us as we approach thinking and working about equity.
So I think we took a systems approach to this, which is something I'm really proud of. We deep dive trained our leaders. And so this is what Dr. Jones spoke about, this being the third year of training. And we capacitized those leaders to be able to have these really intense, deep conversations at the building level. And so this was the year that was slated that we begin to move it into the buildings. So our teachers, for the first time, are getting this at the building level as a whole. We've also had this group of 70, I think it's 72 teachers that have been engaged since year one with us. And so each building now has this team that is built. So it's not just the leader, but it's also this team of their peers. And we have a year-long map of what each building, or I guess it would be each level, is doing. And I said we can try to put that up as well. I can't get it real quick, but it's a map that goes through each month what the building is working on. And I think that really helps. One, it gives the roadmap, but two, it helps us as leaders be able to hold our buildings accountable for doing the work. Because when it's difficult work, it's sometimes easy to, we're kind of too busy this month, we had to do this, we had to do that, and we didn't get to it. No, this roadmap, you're expected to get to it. And so I think we've seen some great, sorry about that, it's my sleep. I think we've seen some great results already with that, and that will continue throughout the year.
Yeah. If anyone does have a question, you can. Yeah. We are broadcasting it.
Oh,
so
okay.
that
It
way
was
they can-
announced on May 15th that Sawyer was going to become an overflow school for the entire school district. I'd like to know the reasoning why staff wasn't shifted or increased at that point, knowing that Meeker, Fellows, and Edwards were close to capacity. It wasn't until the second week of October that our school was actually fully staffed with 179 additional students. The impact was great. Our success program has such a need that they're not even teaching math. They announced that at our PTO class, and I realize that's a federally funded program. I have a real concern that the staffing wasn't met until October, knowing we were going to be the overflow school. I also have a real issue with the equity problem. 90 of the 179 students that came to Sawyer are free and reduced students. So where is the equity of spreading that throughout the school district instead of impacting one specific school? So I'd like to know why staffing wasn't adjusted to meet those needs. And just where that follow through of communication was with parents. Sawyer is not doing well this year. I can tell you that. The teachers are stressed. The senior teachers that have been there for a long time are not looking at coming back. Many of them are very frustrated. So there needs to be some things addressed and some answers, and the teachers need more support. It's not a lack of classroom management, I can tell you that much.
You can probably hear me too without this. I thank you for that question, first of all. And enrollment challenges, this is my second year for those of you that don't know. Enrollment challenges were something that when I came in, I'm going to be real transparent here, they were a mess. I don't believe that as a district we've done a great job at forecasting and doing planning that's long-term. And I'm going to, again, speak very honestly. I hear this said across our community. Well, we can't because Ames is different. We're a college town. I talk to other superintendents in college towns, and you can do demographic reports, and you can predict. So I apologize on behalf of the district that we haven't done well at that, and I'm going to make changes so that that happens in a better way. Like Dr. Jones said, I can't make those changes like that. I wish I could. And so we're kind of stuck with living with some of the past and what's been done around open enrollment and where students have been placed and how that's all looked, while we're trying to clean that up and move in a direction. And what I don't want to do is impact kids negatively. Absolutely. And so it's tough. What we have going on right now, we have a demographic report being done. We've hired, the board approved a contract to hire a demographer, and we will get the enrollment trend reports back in January. So we'll have a board work session, the date, January 22nd, 27. We're going to double check that before we leave here. So we'll be able to begin to use data to drive some of these decisions. Hang on one second, I'll get there. Yep. So what we looked at are policies from outlying districts around both the metro and our local area. And what we found was designating a building so that there's so much that goes into this, and we can talk further. We can set up a time to maybe have a group come and talk with me about so we can go deeper into this, but the transportation piece, all of that, the open enrollment piece. So we tried to designate a building that had room as the building that our open enrolled students and our overflow students would go into. That way we could streamline transportation and we could staff that. I can't speak to the building not being staffed. I wasn't aware of that until now. So that's the first I had heard that the building wasn't staffed until October. So I'm going to check into that.
Pretty obvious walking through the school with the influx of students. You could see that the school clearly wasn't fully staffed. PTO meeting, Sue Lawler spoke to, yay, it's Tuesday, we're finally officially fully staffed at our school.
Okay.
It was in October at our PTO meeting.
Okay.
That's knowing and seeing that there was that increased enrollment. How was that missing link?
Right. So the way we've done open enrollment, or the way we did it in the past, was that families got to select their school. Well, what that led to now is, one, inequity, because we have families that move into neighborhoods and their neighborhood school is full. So that's difficult for families and then it's upsetting to families who open enroll who can't select their schools, or who have siblings at a school, but there's not room there for the other siblings. And so, when I first came, my idea, month one, let's take all the open enrolled out and place our students who are our resident students in their buildings, and then let's add back in. Now, I was cautioned, don't do that. That's gonna that's gonna really upset the community, and I understand why. So we're trying to fix the problem. We're trying to put additions on the schools so we can house, but this is a complex issue, and we have to look at it through what is best practices for how we deliver our elementary programming and what makes the most sense. I know there's been discussions, I'm going to bring it up. I know there's been things out there that, oh, the district is going to be doing grade banded buildings. That's been a discussion that I've had since I came. That's not something that will ever happen overnight. That is a long process to get to that point. And that may not be the answer, but that's definitely something we have to explore because there's a lot of research behind it, as well as how do we look at our programming and deliver the best programming possible, and that may not be grade banded buildings. So those rumors that are out there that next year we're doing grade banded buildings and the teachers don't know, that's not true. That could never happen. There's a lot of work that has to go into doing grade banded buildings. So it's an option that we're looking at along with grade banded buildings. So it would be buildings that are, so you'd have a K2 building. So kindergarten through second, you'd have a third. And it's a way to really capacitize teachers to be able to deliver. So there's research behind that model, but there's research behind a lot of other models as well. What we don't want to have happen is what happened this year. So I think we need to have already talked about forming a focus group when we get that demographic data back after we've done a board work session so we can really dig deep, hear from parents, and have you be part of the solution. I'll let Dr. Dumas talk to the staffing shortages. I wasn't aware of those. Okay, he wasn't either. So January 27th is the work session. We'll make sure we get that out there long before, but those of you that are here, put it on your calendar.
Considering we've had a record enrollment this year, how is the school district planning, considering there's the potential for capping first grade next year with a record kindergarten enrollment this year? How are you addressing this to not negatively impact schools next year?
Yep, those are all discussions that are happening right now and that will happen with more depth when we get those demographic reports back, because we only have so much space. So we're gonna have to, you're 100%. Exactly, yes. And we're excited about the growth, but we also have to plan this out very strategically. So yes, thank you. Just when we leave, leave your name and I'll try to get with you to get some more information too.
We've had a number of questions about ELP, the placement of students and data used to make those decisions. So if we can talk to.
I'd be happy to begin to address that process. Yep. So what I can say is I know in a review of our data around that placement that we, like many schools nationally, have great disparity in equitable placement in our ELP program. We do. And so, in fact, the ELP coordinator and myself are meeting with the ELP team a week from yesterday to begin to examine first literature around program models that can produce greater equity and establish the kind of the vision of where we want to go, and then begin to look at those processes and the criteria for selection, and then look at policy. So we want to build an equitable vision, then build equitable-minded programming to then inform an equitable approach to policy and criterion selection. So again, I've alluded to the fact that this is not only an Ames issue. This is an issue that really is a nationwide disparity in how identification occurs. And so we're searching pretty broadly for research and practices that can help inform that approach. I'm confident that it's there. Again, I have an article that I was just starting to read last night on the subject. And so I think you've heard this a couple of times, just like I really enjoyed your analogy, Dr. Jones, of we have a hole in the ground now, but we have an exciting vision we're moving towards. I don't know that it will take a same 3-year process to get to a place where ELP programming can have both a policy and an approach that provides a little bit more equitable process to it. I'll hand this to you in just a moment. But it is still a process, right? We're still in process.
My 2 kids go to fellows, so it's very interesting. For both the kids, we are the same parents. We speak Indian language at home, but my kids know only one language, English. That's the only way they have communicated all their lives since they were born. One of my kid is in ELP program, and the other one is in ESL program. And he's just a kindergartner, and I see his score that came out for reading. It is 3 points above the average number, but he is in ESL. And when we connected with the teacher, they said that, well, you listed that you speak a different language at home. And then I was like baffled, because we are talking about different language, and that's what in research says, that if parents or if the child is instructed bilingually, they have better cognitive development. So I'm just like, I don't, and they both have gone to the same daycare. The education system have been the same, but I can definitely say that my daughter was an avid reader. Even when she was a kindergartner, she used to read chapter books, but that's not the case with my son. He's still reading level 1, level 2 books. But I don't know how he goes to ESL and how my daughter goes to ELP. So it's like so confusing, I think, as parents, when we are not aware of how the thing happens.
So there's 2 things here, and I'm really glad you raised this, because it's one of my pet peeves. So it's actually federal law that we ask the question about home language. And if the answer is a language other than English, then the student gets screened for English language services. So that's where that comes from. Now, yeah. Yeah. So, right. So the reason why your older child, I'm guessing, is because the way a student gets out of ELP is either by a parent saying, out of English language services, is either by a parent saying, I don't want them in English language services, and you can do that. Or the other option is they pass out of the federal test that Dr. Hawkins, the ELPA 21. So your older child has probably passed that test, and that's why they're not in it. So that's the identification side, which is very complicated. And
it's not equitable, because my child can pay, and why should that additional tutor be hired for my child?
Yeah.
If there is a need, I can definitely do that. If somebody for limited income, that money could have gone to that person. So the other thing I want to just share a little bit about is that English language services and ELP services, talented and gifted services, are not mutually exclusive. English learners absolutely can and are high ability students. And so we should not connect in our minds, and I'm breezing this because Shaylee has shared with me, that there's sometimes a perception in the community that English language learners are dumb. No, absolutely not. So I know you don't, but I just wanted to, you. He can educate, like for a 5-year-old, he can educate
Yes.
everyone on cars.
So you gave me an in.
He's super smart.
Yeah, so you gave me an in. So Shaylee has raised that with me, and so, if that comes up in conversations with folks, please, it's a misconception that's out there, and we need to work to dispel that misconception, because English language kiddos have an amazing blessing to be able to speak multiple languages, and I wish I had that blessing. So thank you for providing me that opportunity to address that.
Yeah. We're going to return to PBIS, we had a couple questions, follow-up questions about this. One had to do as far as room clears and strategies for reducing those across our elementary schools. And I will tack on a secondary question that I think we can address as well on how students, using the positive part and how some students may get missed through that process of being identified for their positive work and behaviors in the classroom and the hallways.
Okay, I'll start with room clears. We also identified this as an area of concern last spring, and so again, trying to build capacity within the buildings for the principal and their team to address room clears. And so we have a lot of things going on. One, we want to provide a really great Tier 1 for all students. And just like Tier 1 doesn't meet the needs of all students in reading, then what's next? And so we have things in place where students then who continue to struggle, we put in Tier 2 supports, Tier 3, where they're receiving instruction to help them with their social skills, their social emotional learning. And so those things are in place. And then we also worked with the buildings to put things in place around room clears where we have a group of people that will respond so that one of those team members can go in and support the classroom teacher and the class if this is happening, because we want to make sure the students that are in the room get to, one, have any support they need about what just happened, and also once everybody's regulated, that they can continue learning. We want to get to a place where we don't have any room clears. That's where we want to be, and put together plans for students that are not regulated and are struggling, and have plans put together to help them, because they don't want this to happen as well. They don't want to be the child that has to live with this after, they know their class was cleared. I can tell you, we are addressing it. We are working. Every building has, we've put in place additional resources in the buildings for this year. We have behavior interventionists in all of our elementary buildings that we did not have in the past, and along with a behavior specialist at Ames Middle School. We also have kind of a district-wide behavior strategist that is working with those professionals to help them learn so that they can better do their job. And then I always goop up the name. I want to make sure I say it right. Family advocates?
Student-family advocates.
Yeah, we have hired 2 social workers that are student and family advocates that help the elementary buildings, and that's to help families find resources, things that we can't always take care of everything in school, that families need outside resources. They are reaching out to families and helping them find what supports they need for their child and their family so that school can be a more positive experience for their child.
Just the one other support so we put the behavior interventionists in every elementary building, added a behavior interventionist at the district level to be able to work with the buildings. And then we talked about the social workers for elementary. And the final thing is we also had our counselors going in all day long and teaching in the classroom. Social emotional learning curriculum. And so we've pulled our counselors out of teaching so they're available to do groups with students. And so that social emotional learning is that I said at the very beginning, that's one of the pieces of our MTSS model, and that needs to be delivered by teachers. The research shows that the best impact for the social emotional learning program is if it's delivered by teachers in the classroom on a daily basis. And so we've pulled those counselors out so they're available to assist with student needs as well.
And if I could just, I believe there was a portion of the question around how do we ensure that we accurately praise and reward students through the process. So I've been able to sit in on the professional development in some of the buildings in which we're talking about both the teaching component, the reinforcement component, like the reteaching, the reward component, and also the consequence component. I believe as we get more familiar with it, we'll become more efficient and effective in the process. I would tell you that in addition to the structures like personnel that were described, we're also going to be implementing a data collection process in which people can put information into the system that allows us to then analyze data. Because while I certainly recognize that everybody who's done behavior that is positive and wants a reward wants that applied, and I do know that our at the secondary level that our middle school has already done one school-wide reward, pretty broad. I also recognize I spent 15 years in a high school. Not every student who needs to be told slow down in the hallway or put your cell phone away is going to. So just like we're not going to catch everything on the recorrection end, where we may not individually. Oh yeah, I forgot to reward Darcy today. We can raise that cognizance, but systemically, what I want to make sure with the data tracking is that we're not seeing patterns of inequity in who either gets referred for consequences or who gets rewarded. And so from a broader lens, I wanted to be able to address that we're putting systems in place to ensure that that level of inequity, both on the reward or consequence side, is not what we see as a result of this system.
So I want to make sure we're respectful of the time because I know many of you have to be back to work. One of the things I did forget to tell you in the beginning was that we're recording this, so both tonight's session and this session will be available on our YouTube channel thing. And then in addition to that, like I said, we'll be answering those questions. Eric will give you a little bit more information, but before he does, I really want to get your feedback on this session. So these aren't necessarily questions, but feedback on ways to make this better, or things that you thought were really great that we want to make sure we keep. And so in the very back, our technology director and my assistant, they both have they have some note cards, so if you could give us feedback, if you have a second on your way out, how we can improve this or things that you liked that we did that you want us to keep, and then I'll let Eric close. Definitely, we need more time.
Well, yeah, I wanted to thank everyone for coming out. I think the commitment from our community and the level of questions being asked is very clear. So I have a couple points to make. We are having another one of these sessions at 5:30 tonight in this room. We'll talk about some of the same things, but I would imagine that we're going to have also some very different questions as well. Like Superintendent Reisner said, we will be videotaping that session as well and posting it on our YouTube channel. Additionally, we did not get through all of the questions or even all of the topics. And so I'm sure some of them will come up tonight, but we're going to take these questions and we're going to find ways to answer them moving forward. So some of that will be on our website. We'll take some of the questions, we'll answer them, we'll post them to our website, share through our social media. But looking through these questions, have also found some really great content as far as how we can use that within our magazine, how we can have conversations on our podcast. If you have not subscribed to that, I encourage you to do so, because that is a forum where we can have complicated and complex conversations about topics that aren't just a 3-sentence answer. And so these are really great questions. And additionally, I think many of us will stick around afterwards. So if you have a question that, I was told that our questions filled up through the device that we were using. So if you have a specific question, you can feel free to stick around and ask that question. And again, thank you for everyone who came out today.
For those questions that did not get answers today, when do we expect them to be posted on the website or something?
I think within the next couple weeks. So we're going to
Yeah, I think probably it would be best if we just said by a certain date, just so people know. So today is, is today Wednesday? Thursday, Wednesday. So today is Wednesday. So I think by, let's just say by next Friday, we should be able to have your questions answered and have those posted.
This is related to that. It's kind of all received maximum number of responses. Should I assume my question is not received and I have to resubmit it?
Yes.
Okay. And where do I resubmit that?
No card.
We'll do it old school.
So anybody who got the message